Hello and welcome to the AI-infused demand planning webinar powered by TM1py. My name is James Downey, General Manager for the US Central Region, and I have the privilege again, for the second time today, of introducing my fellow CubeWiser here in the US, Jason Apwah, Technical Account Manager. Jason, how are you going today?
I'm doing well, James. Thanks for asking.
Excellent. And how's your Horizon 2022 going? Any particular presentations that are a standout for you so far?
Yeah, actually, there's three that come to mind. One is the advanced multi-threading, which personally is something that I'm very close to, being able to accelerate data load processes, accelerate the runtime of allocations and things like that. I remember in practice getting like a 10-hour allocation process down to under an hour, like way under an hour, and I thought that was very impactful. Another one is the metadata and data synchronization across instances, whether it's on-premise to cloud or cloud-to-cloud instances and things like that. That's highly useful. In instances where customers are sort of have that dual entitlement and they're moving to the cloud, but they need to maintain some some data sharing across instances, or just general data syncing across instances that have common dimensionality and things like that. And then the third is all things Power BI integration. That's something that I think, James, you and I have seen come up a lot. And the solution that CubeWise has come up with recently to have a custom connector with TM1 security built into it. I think that's an excellent addition to the Power BI community. How about yourself? What do you find interesting?
Yeah, there's some really good presentations there. I think kind of one of the big standout ones for myself, and agree with this, as we're seeing more customers moving workloads to the cloud, and they're needing to kind of integrate with other cloud-based ERP systems or data lakes or BI systems, or they're wanting to move work, have a hybrid deployment of planning analytics on cloud and on local, and how the REST API is becoming, and TM1py, which we obviously talk about today here as well. But just kind of like how integral these components are becoming, and how we're able to do so much more in terms of programmatical improvements, automation, improving the visualizations of your applications. This whole kind of rejuvenation theme that we're hearing a lot about at the moment. So, and for me, I kind of had some really enjoyable presentations that I attended from the Australian teams earlier today, or yesterday, I should say, and they were kind of looking at cash flow, the different kind of ways in which people do cash flow planning and reporting. Roy Burton did a presentation there where he was talking about indirect and direct cash flow techniques. We had Andrea Alex talking about Apwah UPM and kind of those best practice frameworks that CubeWise has for these pre-built solutions. They're very impactful there. And we had, of course, John Lee presenting in a number of sessions, one with Nick Renaud as well, again on TM1py. So it's been a really busy 24 hours, and I'm really looking forward to this next session here, Jason, as we turn our attention to AI-infused demand planning powered by TM1py. And I guess it's important to mention here that the use of predictive algorithms and machine learning in corporate planning, known as predictive planning and forecasting, has been an important development in finance and controlling over recent years. Its aims are to improve planning and forecasting, and to increase automation, and to reduce the workload on planners. And we're seeing this as a growing theme and a growing area of innovation within the planning analytics stack, and obviously in other technology stacks as well. And so today we're going to have, I'll hand it across to Jason here, and he's going to go do a deep dive into demand planning as a use case. But these concepts and techniques obviously can kind of go quite well with everything from CapEx planning to treasury management to workforce planning, route optimization of trucking and logistics, as well as core FP&A based kind of components, revenue, GP planning, net profit, looking at cash receivables, things like that. So a very wide use case. But maybe on that note, Jason, over to you to kick it off, and thank you again.
Thank you, James. As James mentioned, I'm Jason Apwah, coming to you from the New York City area here in the United States. And today I'm going to show you an example of AI-infused demand planning powered by TM1py. Sort of adding on top of what James said earlier, organizations using business analytics can better anticipate things like risk, right? They can also recover from unplanned disruption, They have the ability to pivot to seize new opportunities. They can also do things like boost sales and productivity when they're using machine learning powered intelligence. And so how do organizations use analytics? Like you mentioned, James, sales and marketing teams could use it to improve sales forecasting and accuracy by generating like territory or account plans. HR might use it for workforce and capacity planning. For supply chain, business analytics provides more accurate sales and operations planning, including demand and supply planning, as well as inventory optimization and those types of things. So, when it comes to supply chain management, one of the key components of it is demand planning. And that's because the ability to accurately form a trusted baseline and a demand basis enables other critical business decisions to be made. And so, but being able to embrace your data and take advantage of these opportunities really requires you to have a solution that can handle that. And that's part of what I'm going to show today. So what we're going to do is we're going to analyze historical sales using various reports. Then we're going to clean up the data by adjusting actuals in the case of outliers or other anomalies or one-time events. And then we're going to use an interface to fit time series models on the historical data to predict sales and then seed forecast scenarios for our planners to actually go ahead and adjust. So before I continue on, one of the things I want to note is companies have varying appetites when it comes to how these predictive models are generated, right? So some want everything automated completely, which is perfectly fine, while others want some automation, but with some additional levers to pull. So keep in mind that what we're going to show you today is, the intention of what we're going to show you today is to provide an example. So it's one of the possibilities to sort of get your creative juices flowing. So let's get right into the demonstration. All right, so as I had mentioned before, we're going to review historical sales. So this overview shows the quantity sold breakdown by country. Okay, so in my opinion, there really isn't a better way, or there aren't too many better ways to get an overview of a lot of data other than some well-defined and interactive visualizations. So as you can see here, we have an interactive map showing the quantity sold by country and a column chart that seems to show the same data, but you can also drill down and you can see the products sold within that country. Okay, and anytime I can go back and reset the book to where I was if I want to go back to the standard view and everything. We also have a time series bar chart that shows a clear positive trend of sales, and I can drill down on it. So I can either click on the bar itself, or I can focus on a particular, there's nothing in 2022, or I can focus on a particular year up in my pickers to display that. Then finally, at the bottom right-hand corner, we do have a nice heat map that shows the quantity sold by product and revenue sold by product, where the size of the square is quantity and the depth of the color blue is the revenue. So it's just an example of how you can easily display a lot of data and really draw a lot of information from it really quickly. So the other thing I can do here is I can see the quarterly average trends, which clearly shows, again, a high performance, selling performance overall. And then over here on the right-hand side, we have some more detail by individual product, comparing last year to date to this year to date selling performance by product. Okay, so all of this is sort of giving me a view into sales by different perspective, which as TM1 enthusiasts, James, we understand how valuable being able to pivot data and view data through a different lens, how valuable and how important that is.
Yeah, no, very much so. I think this kind of this workspace object you have on screen here, I find it quite a compelling kind of a user experience as well, where you can see that there's a navigational options down the left-hand side, and as well as kind of having the the back and next button. Again, making planning easy for your data analysts as they kind of go through their workflow process. I mean, just out of interest, Jason, that previous dashboard, to give the people kind of watching this, how long did that take to put together?
A few minutes. All I really needed to do was understand what I want to display, and then how I want to display it. So, for example, these pretty much all show quantity sold by some dimension. So all I need to do is decide which visualization is the best visualization to display the data. And planning analytics will actually do a lot of that work for you. So to answer your question in short, just a handful of minutes. I'm talking like less than 10 minutes to create something like this, including the interactivity. It doesn't require any code whatsoever.
Excellent.
So,
That's
you know,
really good.
thank you. So those of you out there that have planning analytics or TM1 and haven't really looked into planning analytics workspace, try planning analytics workspace. You don't need to, you know, make any adjustments to your underlying TM1 models or planning analytic models. If you haven't, you can start doing stuff like this today. So I think one of the really one of the most interesting parts of this whole thing is when we actually translate this information into some demand forecasts. But before we get to that, I want to talk about something that we call behavior analysis. So when we're forecasting quantity sold of products or anything, it might be beneficial to understand sales performance by groups of products, which have similar selling behaviors. This way we can think about planning or forecasting by product clusters, which may be more meaningful versus alternatives like just individual products or like a natural product grouping or something like that. You know, so for instance, you might say, you know, understanding how COVID affected sales might be made easier if you're able to visualize sales by product cluster. So James, we can see here that this first cluster appears to be a cluster of products that are sort of at the beginning of their life cycle, of their product life cycle. And we can see that we have a clear positive upward trend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in this one, in the center cluster, it could be products that are mature in their product life cycle. So we do see a lot of seasonality here towards the end of each year, but the trend is relatively flat. So we could probably make the assumption that these are mature products. And then in contrast with the first cluster, we see products that seem like they're at the end of their life cycle. So you can kind of see how this might be useful, understanding products by their similar selling behaviors. At any given time, I can go ahead and I can drill down to see the individual products that make up this cluster. And so I can, you know, further solidify the fact that, you know, yes, these are products that appear to have similar selling behaviors. The system is automatically determining these clusters. Okay.
And maybe just as a point there, like as myself as an end user of Planning Analytics Workspace here at CubeWise, you know, I find what you just did there, you know, my day-to-day operations is a very relevant feature. All of the kind of like inbuilt workspace, you know, right-click type of functionality, the ability to expand out your graphs and charts, and you know, there's just even more capabilities being delivered here within Workspace, and it has definitely kind of improved a lot over the last two plus years. So you can see here just by the ease of use that Jason's demonstrating, how this can kind of further empower your business analysts to appreciate the underlying data structure and gain further insights. So just want to kind of share that from an end user's perspective here.
Thanks, James. That's a really good point, and that's it's funny that you mentioned. Actually, I guess it's not ironic at all because that's something that you do. You're very passionate about, and being able to basically, you know, access the system and know that, you know, how easy it is to manipulate visualizations and things like that, and do your own ad hoc analysis, and just all the rich features that you have built in Planning Analytics Workspace. It really does what it says, what you just said. It really enables users to feel like they can serve themselves and do their work without needing, you know, necessarily members from IT to create reports and things like that for them. So it really accelerates the ability for people to do self-service analysis. One of the things I want to do is touch on this just a little bit more is how did we create these clusters? So we loaded data from the sales by product cube in TM1 into TM1py, and then we use the k-means algorithm to generate the clusters. So think about how useful this is. Imagine having to do, you know, this kind of grouping these kinds of grouping manually. You know, we just had to choose an algorithm that would do it for us automatically. So this is really just to illustrate how you can use machine learning in other aspects of the demand planning process, not just on the time series aspect of it. So the final step before we make forecasts is cleaning up the data. And we do that partially with this screen, which allows us to detect anomalies. Okay, so if you have a time series which is seasonal, here's where we can create a simple breakdown of the history. Okay, so most time series can be broken down into 3 components. That's the trend, seasonality, and residual components. So you can see at the bottom, on the bottom view, green is the seasonality component. That's very clear. Trend is the blue line, which is a very a slight positive trend upwards. And purple is the residual component, the piece that really isn't attributable. You can say it's a piece that really isn't attributable to trend or seasonality. It's sort of the random component. But being able to decompose time series is really important in anomaly detection because by definition, an anomaly is something that deviates from what's expected. And the only way you can really know if something is normal is if you have something to compare against. So we basically decompose actuals into the components, and we can do you can basically show what's on the top, which is if the actuals line, the purple line, deviates too far from the trend plus seasonal line, which is the blue line, then you have an anomaly or an outlier. And we can see that that's primarily driven by some random event that happened at the end of 2020. I personally know that because it's due to a promotion where we lowered the price of this particular product to liquidate stock. So that's why there was a slight increase in sales here. So and then we also have a nice exploration on the left-hand side that shows which months the anomalies are detected in. So essentially, in this area right here, the variance or the deviation from the actuals line exceeded a certain threshold. Okay, and that threshold we do have the flexibility to set here. I'm not going to go into that, but that's just to illustrate a lot of the additional flexibility you have with planning analytics. Once outliers are all, yeah, go ahead, James.
Sorry, Jason, just a quick question here that we've seen come through the chat. You know, behind those buttons up the top, but they're running turbo integrated processes that are kicking off TM1py script, or just maybe share a little bit about, or maybe you're about to, what's behind those effectively action buttons.
Right. Yeah. So the action buttons, good guess. The action buttons do run turbo integrated processes, and those turbo integrated processes then go kick off Python scripts. This one in particular will run a Python script that will decompose your history into those trend, seasonality, and residual components. This particular action button actually navigates to a different sheet where we can set the outlier sensitivity that I was just talking about. In subsequent screens, I'll show you additional action buttons that we have that will do things like perform the training of predictive models and actually predict the future periods that we select. That's a good question.
Excellent, thank you.
So once outliers are detected, now we can go ahead and do some cleanup of the data. So, here is where I can view my actuals and then enter values to adjust them, so that it provides a nice basis for the predictive models to do its work. I can see here that in late 2020, my actuals really dipped virtually to 0. And I know that's because we had a huge delay in restock, but we also had marketing initiatives to prepare for our company's 100-year anniversary. But you can see here that the peak is just in the wrong period. So to make sure that my algorithms or my models are trained properly, I'm going to adjust my actuals in order to help accomplish that. So I'm going to go ahead and go to 2020. I'm going to go and paste in updated values so that I can make sure that my peak is in the correct period. It's always at the end of the year, so the 12th period of the year. And then I'm also going to even out 2021 to make sure that that peak that we know was due to timing issues is no longer there. So you can see how quickly and easily I was able to adjust the actuals. So now, instead of the purple line being used to feed my forecast for this my predictive algorithm for this product, the blue line is going to be used, and that's in more line with my history. Okay. So once your data is all clean, the next step is the fun part, and that's where we actually get to go and create the predictive models. So on this screen, this is where we can train various models on your historical data. So keep in mind, though, James, that planners that actually would normally enter their forecasts every period, they
Mm-hmm.
haven't even needed to get into the system at this point. Okay, all of this is part of the value of the whole thing, right? To leave everyone alone, really, while we're generating the forecasts for them as a starting point. So first, what are we looking at? Over here on the left-hand side, we're looking at a widget where we can select the models whose output that we can display in this line chart. Okay, so this green line that you see is our historical actuals, and the lines here that we're showing are the purple line is what's called a naive projection. A naive projection is really the most simple predictive model, and it's not a predictive model at all. It's really just copying the last year's worth of data to the future. That's really why it's called naive, right? And it's not like it's stupid or anything. It's actually very useful having a naive forecast to compare as a baseline to your predictive models, right?
Yeah, very much so. And this just on that again, like you're kind of coming in a bit here. This seeding of the forecast before the business users, allowed into that part of the system is obviously something that a lot of us have been doing for many years. But again, here we're kind of like looking to improve the automation and the forecast accuracy by implementing more custom-built predictive models, and the ability to do that thanks to TM1py, the REST API, and other components is just easier and easier every day, and companies are really kind of leaning into this and getting some really good value in this, again, around automation and accuracy of their forecasts. So these are familiar concepts, I know, with a lot of people who are here today, but still it's that kind of ever kind of trying to ever do better mantra, and again, around performance, automation, and accuracy. So just to kind of add that extra context there, Jason.
That's a really good point, James. Thank you for mentioning that. And we all talk about continuous planning, having that granular look ahead and accurate look ahead all the time. That's hard if you have to do it every single time. So why not make it easier by doing some of that work automatically, right? So that's a lot of the value that you spoke about. So let me actually display. We actually ran some predictive models before the session began. I just want to show the results of those. At any time, so this, these algorithms were run previously, and so on the bottom left-hand side, we can see historically what it was the best performing algorithm for this particular cross section. Right now, I'm focused on a particular product, but it could be the same thing for a particular product group or a product cluster that we were talking about before. What I can do optionally is I can go ahead and basically retrain models. So if I click on this action button, what it will do is it'll automatically pull the cross sections from my sheet. So what segment of the business do I want to forecast? What product do I want to forecast? What country do I want to forecast it for? Then I can go ahead and select the algorithm that I want to train. And then I can, give it a name, a unique name, because, when you retrain a model, it could have a different result. And then I can set the beginning of my source period of my source data and the end period of my source data and run that projection. What will actually happen is it will not only do some hyperparameterization of some tuning parameters, but it will also generate the forecasts in the future automatically. If I want to just reuse a trained model that I had reused before, then I can click this predict button and just select a predefined and select a model that had been trained previously. So I do have options. I can retrain models. I can reuse models that I've already trained. It's really limitless when you talk about options here. By the way, you notice we have several algorithms that we have available to train models, to train in this particular application. I think I mentioned before that this was built in the back end using TM1py. All the TM1 objects are regular TM1 objects, but the engine behind the predictive capabilities is TM1py. Shout out to the Supply Focus team, by the way, for all their great work in developing this technology. But that doesn't mean that you're limited to using TM1py. We have customers that are integrating planning analytics with Watson Studio and IBM Cloud to leverage additional functionality in the IBM Business Analytics ecosystem to do similar things. But TM1py is a great option for its flexibility here. So what we're looking at here, just to review and then close out the screen, is a comparison between all of these selected models that we have chosen. We can see here that historically the Holt-Winters model was the best performing one. So ideally, when I'm done doing all my predictive work, I would go ahead and use this to seed the forecast scenario or forecast scenarios for my end users. Okay, so this is where I go ahead and I select Holt-Winters. That's the version that's predicted. And I want to seed it to one of these or multiple versions for my forecasts for the planners to go and start with. Okay, I've already done that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move over to the next page. Actually, before I get there, real quick, if you have questions on what these models are, I love to build documentation right into the application. So here we can see the basics of what each of the models do, and we can extend that as we include more models into the system. So finally, this is where we actually get to, as a planner, go in and start working on the data. So think about it. By this point, a huge amount of time has been saved because all of the really hard work was done previously to seed the forecasts. So as an example, this I know that marketing, as an example, our marketing department wants to run a promotion to begin increasing sales prior to the anticipated peak in March that we normally have, right? So what we want to do is we want to try to adjust the forecast so that it meets our requirement of around $50,000 in the month of February. So what I'm going to do is for that promotion in the second month, I'm going to change the price to 40 cents. And then I'm going to overwrite the predicted forecast just for this month. And I want to make it, I'll make it 140,000 to be more in line with December of the previous year. And we see that we did accomplish our goal. We have $56,000 of revenue for that product in that period versus the $46,000 product that we have in that period. And guess what? I'm pretty much done. That's all I had to do as an end user or a planner. Now I can go ahead and submit this for approval. So I can, once I've made my adjustments to the predictive model, I can go and say, okay, manager, review the numbers, please let me know if it's okay. If it gets rejected, fine, I can go ahead and make more adjustments. If it's accepted, I can go with my day, which is now 1 hour, which I have 1 hour's, let's say, additional worth of time because I didn't have to actually enter all these values manually. All I needed to do was include my business knowledge into the application.
That's a really good example there, Jason, of just how quickly you can kind of go through that analytical workflow process and using a variety of different techniques. And obviously at the heart of this is planning analytics as the core engine. But as you said, we're kind of integrating here with TM1py that's allowing us to get into additional Python libraries. But at the same time, you could kind of integrate relatively easily with Watson Studio, decision optimization, any number of other products from IBM or other vendors as well to kind of really step out your customized predictive model but at its core, is planning analytics. So this is and we've just got a couple of minutes left here. This is a really good kind of further example here of what this Jason has been showing about that your programmatical improvements and rejuvenation of your models using everything from TM1py, better architecture and designs, temporary objects, going for less locking, better data and archiving strategies. So that kind of programmatical and automation that you can do, and then you combine that with these visual improvements that you were seeing here with Workspace. That it definitely has the wow factor. I would say that.
Thank you, James. That's the end of the demonstration. So if there are any questions, we can get into them. One of the things that I get asked a lot is how long does it take to actually run some of these algorithms or train these models?
Good question.
And the answer is it depends. But in this particular system, at the product level, seconds. And that can actually be, can be further improved depending on the hardware that you have behind the scenes. And so you can, it depends on your hardware, but this can be really, really performant. So although it has sophisticated techniques in it, it doesn't mean that it needs to take several hours to run these algorithms.
That's a really good point, because at the end of the day, we want these additional capabilities for the end users to be in near real time as possible. So that's a good call out, that this isn't kind of introducing hours into the process, more a matter of extra seconds to get this near real time additional forecasting, which is going to improve your forecasting accuracy. So excellent. So I think we're kind of coming up against time here. Jason, anything you want to mention in closing?
I think that's it. But thanks, James, for joining. Thanks for the audience for joining. This was AI Infused Demand Planning with Planning Analytics, featuring TM1py at Horizon 2022. Happy to share our knowledge and insights. Do good TM1. Hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Excellent. Thanks all. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.